I remember the day so clearly. The sun was shining bright, and the air felt warm and gentle, wrapping around me like an old, familiar blanket. Birds were singing in the trees, their melodies light and carefree, while the wind whispered through the leaves. It was a peaceful morning, but my heart felt heavy, weighed down by the inevitability of change. I sat on the porch, cradling my cup of tea. My hands trembled slightly, not from the breeze, but from the restless swirl of emotions inside me. My daughter had told me something important. She said she wanted to get married, her voice steady, her eyes full of hope. The words lingered in the air, changing everything in an instant. I looked out at the garden. The flowers were blooming, just like they did when she was a child. I could still picture her running through the garden, laughing and playing. She was my little girl, but now she had grown up. She stood in front of me, her eyes bright and full of hope. She looked so happy, but I was not ready for this moment. I took a deep breath and asked her, "Are you sure?" She smiled and nodded. "Yes, Dad, I love him. I want to be with him." Her voice was soft but sure. She was not a little girl anymore. She had made her choice. I knew this day would come, but I didn't expect it so soon. I wanted to tell her so many things. I wanted to say how much I loved her. I wanted to remind her of all the times we spent together. I wanted to hold her hand like I did when she was small. But all I could do was nod. "Okay," I said quietly. She hugged me, and I felt her warmth. When she left the room, I sat alone for a long time. The house felt too quiet. The walls seemed to hold so many memories. I looked at the family pictures on the wall. There she was, a baby in my arms, then a little girl holding my hand, then a young woman smiling proudly in her school uniform. And now she was ready to leave. The tea in my cup had gone cold. The sun had moved across the sky. The day looked the same, but everything had changed. I felt something deep inside. It wasn't just sadness. It was something more. I was happy for her, but I felt alone. My little girl wasn't mine anymore. That evening, I sat in my chair and looked at the empty seat across from me. It used to be hers. Every night she sat there, telling me about her day. She talked about school, her friends, and her dreams. I listened, smiled, and gave her advice. But now the seat was empty. The house felt bigger, and the silence felt louder. I walked to her old room. The door was open, but the room felt different. The bed was made, the shelves were clean, and many of her things were gone. I sat on her bed and looked around. Her childhood was still here. The little books, the old toys, the pictures on the wall. I touched the desk where she used to do her homework. Everything felt like a memory now. I closed my eyes and saw her sitting on this bed, holding her teddy bear. She used to ask me for a bedtime story. "Just one more, Dad," she always said. and I always told her one more. But time moves fast. One day, she stopped asking for stories. Another day, she no longer needed my hand to cross the street. And before I knew it, she was a young woman, ready to step into a new chapter of her life. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the streetlights flickered to life, casting a warm glow on the bustling street below. People passed by, talking and laughing, their lives continuing without pause. Life was moving forward, and so was she. I knew I should be happy for her. She was in love. She had found someone who made her heart soar. That was a beautiful thing. But despite all that, a quiet ache settled deep within me, an emptiness that words could never quite fill. The phone rang, breaking the quiet. It was my daughter. "Dad, are you okay?" she asked, her voice carrying a gentle warmth that soothed me. I took a deep breath and smiled, even though my throat felt tight. "Yes, my dear, I'm okay," I said, keeping my voice steady, despite the tide of emotions rising within me. "I just wanted to hear your voice," she said softly, her words wrapping around me like a familiar embrace. I closed my eyes and held the phone close, as if the distance between us could disappear. "I love you," I told her, my voice thick with feeling. "I love you too, Dad," she replied. And for a moment, the emptiness didn't feel so heavy anymore. The days passed, but the feeling in my heart didn't go away. The house stayed quiet, and my mind stayed full of memories. I tried to keep busy. I cleaned the kitchen until the counters gleamed, watered the plants even when they didn't need it, and wandered through the garden, tracing my fingers over the petals of blooming roses. But everywhere I looked, I saw reminders of her. The swing in the yard where she used to play, swaying gently in the breeze, as if waiting for her to come back. The bookshelf with her favourite stories, their covers worn and pages dog-eared from countless late nights. The door with the little marks showing how tall she had grown each year. Each line a quiet testament to time passing too quickly. One afternoon, I sat in the living room, holding an old photo album. I turned the pages slowly, each one a doorway to the past. There she was, a baby wrapped in a soft blanket, her tiny hand curled around my finger, a little girl with messy hair and a grin that lit up the room, a teenager standing proudly in her school uniform, eyes full of determination and dreams. Each picture told a story. Each picture held a moment in time that I wished I could step into, just to hold her close once more and tell her how much she meant to me. I remembered the first time she rode a bicycle. She fell over and over again, scraping her knees and getting dirt on her clothes, but she didn't give up. "I can do it, Dad," she said, her voice unwavering, eyes shining with determination. And she did. That was who she had always been. Resilient, fierce, and full of life. Now, as she stood on the threshold of a new journey, I saw that same spark in her eyes. I knew I had to let her go, even though a part of me wished I could hold on just a little longer. That evening, I went for a walk in the neighborhood. The streets buzzed with life. Families strolled together. Children's laughter rang out, and friends chatted as they walked. I passed by the old school where I used to drop her off every morning, and in my mind I saw her again, small and smiling, waving at me before dashing through the doors. Those fleeting moments, once so ordinary, now shimmered in my memory like precious jewels, each one a reminder of a time I wished I could hold on to forever. I stopped by a small cafe and sat by the window. A father and his young daughter sat at a table nearby. She was telling him a story, her hands dancing through the air with vibrant energy. He leaned in, his eyes never leaving hers, his face lit up with warmth and pride. I couldn't help but smile. I knew that feeling, the quiet joy of seeing your child's world unfold, the privilege of being their safe place. I had lived that moment many times, and now another father was living it, perhaps without even realizing how precious it truly was. Time moves forward. Life continues. But love never fades. My daughter will always be my little girl. No matter where she goes, no matter how far, she will always be in my heart, her laughter echoing in my mind, her warmth lingering in my soul, and her spirit forever guiding me.